Good evening and welcome back to Berlin Critics Week, a week or even a week later than Critics Week. And welcome back everybody who sees us, and welcome back to Pascale Bodet, to a talk with Pascale Bodet and Norbert Pfaffenbichler. And we showed their films at our week, and we screened them actually in a special program we have, which is actually the critics debate. So this evening, on these evenings of the critics debate, we invite the films and we invite two film critics to discuss the films afterward in attendance of the film directors, but the directors, they stay actually in the audience. My first question regarding this special evening of the critics debate, I mean, it must be probably a new experience for you as filmmakers to be invited to this form of talk, or being in the audience, or being the audience of a talk about your films. And I mean, you could have intervened every time into the talk, but you didn't. And so I just would like to know your opinion about how you perceive that particular evening. I don't know who wants to start.
Pascale.
D'accord, merci. C'est le jeu. À partir du moment où on fait un film, c'est aux gens de livrer les expériences qu'ils souhaitent. Donc ça va.
So you said it's the game that basically once you made the film, it's the other people who invite the guests, and therefore you were all right with it?
Yes, I do understand, but usually you are invited to a Q&A afterwards as well. So, I mean, this is what we're doing now, basically. But during actually the screening, isn't it this a sort of new situation to be that your film is discussed with several people on a stage, and maybe for you, it's something that you couldn't really relate to what these people are actually maybe talking about.
Non, enfin, ça m'allait très bien. Enfin, c'était peut-être pas commun, mais pas non plus extraordinaire. Enfin, des gens prennent la parole sur un film. Des fois, quand on fait le Q&A, eh bien, les gens s'expriment de la même manière. C'est juste que peut-être on a un regard qui prolonge davantage ce qu'on a fait, mais j'ai pas grand-chose à dire sur sinon c'était une expérience bienvenue.
Voilà.
So you said that it was all right because it was not necessarily so different from a Q&A where someone will ask questions or the public will ask questions, and therefore your position was a little bit different, but and not so common, but for you it wasn't extraordinarily different, and you don't have that much more to say about the topic.
And Norbert?
Sorry, my daughter is here, so I'm a little bit distracted. Yeah, it was definitely a unique situation and an extraordinary situation, but it wasn't as bad as I expected it before. So when I heard that you have to sit there like on the hot chair and you get criticized and you're not allowed to say anything, I thought it will be very bad, but it wasn't as bad at all. And it was kind of funny experience.
So did you never feel, oh, now I would like to intervene, or now I want to say something, and I don't know, was there never this feeling?
No, I didn't have this feeling. So
yeah.
I was there. I could, if I really wanted to,
yeah,
I could have raised my voice, but it was okay for me.
Yeah. And another question would be as well regarding your showing your films together. So, I mean, you didn't know your films from each other before. So you didn't know with which film we would screen your film. So was this as well like a sort of new experience? Or, I mean, how do you think about that idea or that way how we show films?
Pascale?
No, go. Norbert.
No, ladies first.
Il y avait un rapport qui m'a semblé assez évident entre les deux films, qui est celui de l'époque qu'ils évoquent, c'est-à-dire il y a une indécidabilité, en tout cas ce sont des films à cheval sur quelque chose de passé, de futur ou de présent. Et donc, j'ai trouvé le rapprochement bien vu, malgré les grandes différences entre les deux films.
So, you thought there was a clear connection between both films as to the time period to which they refer. And there's also a kind of undecidability about films that are not clearly situated between the past, the present, and the future, but therefore you found that the connection was well established and well chosen. And what did you add something more?
Oui, que malgré les différences des films, il y avait au moins ce point en commun en termes d'esthétique, cette référence à un temps qui est triple, une époque triple, et puis d'imaginaire.
So that despite the differences, there's this clear similarity between both films, that they have this kind of triple temporality to which they refer as an imaginary time period.
Et manière de faire, esthétique.
And their aesthetic realization or like representation of those times.
But maybe Norbert doesn't agree.
No, I agree. And actually, I saw your film before, so I was sent the screener, so I know about, so I've seen the film, and I think also that they fit together very well, and I liked Pascale's film very much. But the only problem I had was that there was no break between the two films. There was not 1 second of black in between, or it would have been much better if there was a 5 minutes break between the films, so that you can think about your film and before the next film starts. So your head is full of the first film, and in the last frame of the film of Pascale, my film began without any break in between. And I thought maybe for your next festivals, it would be good to have a 5 minutes break between the movies.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
That disturbed me a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But I like the films that are shown together, but just, as I said, a short break in between, that you can think about the last film, and then it gets into a new one. It would be better, I think.
And regarding the topics that had been raised at the debate, could you relate, or do you, at the moment, do you still remember something or something particular which you could relate to, or what for you was interesting, what maybe they could see in your film and you could maybe react now to? Or is that was that just an interesting experience and you don't want to go deeper in that? Or was there something which disturbed you as well? What have been said, or irritated, or completely misunderstanding, or wasn't?
Moi, comme je parle pas allemand, j'ai eu un écho assez globale de la discussion. Il m'a semblé qu'il disait des choses très générales. Donc, non, j'en ai pas retenu grand-chose, mais je comprenais plus ou moins rien. Donc, même avec une traduction globale, en fait. Donc, après, si j'ai failli intervenir quand ils ont parlé des chats, puisqu'il y a eu une question sur les chats, et je sais pas trop bien ce que la personne a répondu, mais ça me semblait pas du tout en relation avec le film. Mais c'est pas grave, enfin, mais je suis pas intervenue, c'était pas non plus déterminant de prendre la parole sur ce sujet.
So you said that as the debate was in German, you were only getting a translation that was, let's say, global, or was kind of summarizing what was being said on stage, and therefore you were not getting everything and could only follow the debate approximately. And but your general impression was that the things that were being said were kind of general, and therefore you didn't remember that much about it. There was a situation where you almost intervened, which related to the question about the cats in your film. And because you were under the impression that the answer that was given did not relate at all to your film. But in the end, it was also not so important, so you decided not to say anything.
Norbert? Yeah.
Yeah, the cat discussion was funny in about Pascale's movie. Yeah, in general, of course. So it's always the same when you talk to people from the audience or even friends. You see the movies. You know, everyone has another experience, and for one as a director, it's always interesting to hear these different movies, and you hear things that you don't know about your own movie. So they see things I haven't seen ever in my movies, and so on. So it's always a nice experience to hear what other people think about your movies. And in that case, of course, I like very much that Daniel said he saw a lot of tenderness in the movie, but it is not only about disgust. So he also mentioned sometimes, more often than he saw that it was a very tender movie, and I liked that very much. Of course, it's a nice compliment for me.
Yeah, I remember that, and I can actually add to that I felt the same. I mean, I was the one actually who's in the audience always talking when they ask the question, and I felt as well regarding your film, when we start now to talk about the films, I felt actually as well about the mask and about I never felt disgusted about these characters. I felt them just like some sort of like over how do you say I mean, they have some sort of there have been some sort of chiffre for something which we maybe is related to our real world as well. I didn't saw them, and that therefore I thought they seemed to me so vulnerable and a lot more vulnerable. And then the ones actually the ones who picked them up, which have been the police or whatever, the military or whatever, they have no face at all, and they look all the same. So that was this discussion about the individuality of the masks, and then we were actually relating as well to some masks, that some masks enhance maybe as well some gender or any other related topics, how they resembled. So I was wondering, what is this something you would then for you would be, because your film was related as well to or at least to The Kid by Chaplin, and I think Istvan said something else which I don't remember now. So was this something you had actually in mind, or is this something you can relate to?
Yeah, thanks a lot. That's also a great compliment for me when you saw that this is vulnerable people. So that's what I meant with these images. And the thing with the mask for me, it was a challenge I gave to myself. So I want to make a movie without dialogues and without human mimic. So normally in all films, also in sound films, got the human face is uh, the one biggest element you have in every movie. So the mimic is extremely important in the faces of the uh, actors and also their voices. So I thought, so I want to make, I give myself Aufgabe, also
Task.
a task to make it as hard as possible. You know, no dialogue and no faces. And I didn't know before what how it will work or how it will work. But in the end, I think it worked. So some people think it hasn't worked, but I think it worked so that you can only that the people only have their bodies to express themselves, and of course the mask is the not moving faces, and of course the sets and the music and all of this. So this was only my idea. So how can I make a movie without? Can I tell a story without faces and without voices? And then I came up with this story, but this was the original idea of the movie.
Yeah. Anything to translate or?
Non, ça va.
Okay, good.
C'est vrai
Yes,
que-
but
pardon.
yeah, go ahead.
Dans le film de Norbert, la donnée de départ qui est l'enfant avec la personne qui la recueille, c'est suffisamment structurant pour que, quels que soient les épisodes, on soit toujours tenu par cette chose qui vient du kid ou de bien avant. C'est une situation très forte. Puis le fait de ne pas avoir de visage, c'est quelque chose d'assez puissant, douloureux, et du coup, ça maintient. Bien que pour moi, l'épisode du marché soit beaucoup mieux que l'épisode sur, par exemple, avec quand la personne se fait arrêter par des travelots, là. Mais bon, après, c'est des questions de goût. Mais la structuration du film est très simple et très forte. Enfin, c'est ce qui... Excuse-moi, Norbert, je parle de ton film.
So, what you liked about the film from Norbert was this this simple structure of the kid that's lost and the person finding it, and that in itself alone is already a very powerful element that keeps you engaged in the story, and which, you know, it relates to the kid, but it's also kind of universal. And what you also liked a lot and thought was engaging was this this absence of mimic, or this face you couldn't see. And yeah, but once that was given, you were engaged either way, even though there were some episodes you liked more, like the market episode, and some you liked less, like the one where the protagonist gets arrested or abducted. But that in itself is more a question of taste, whereas this this ground element of is enough to keep you engaged.
Thank you. Let's see.
Yeah, what I think interesting in this moment as well is, again, regarding to this, what some people might feel disgust that you still can create a sort of empathy with these people who maybe you feel rejected by. I mean, this is what happens as well. At least it happened to me, that you feel empathy with these people you see there. And I mean, we during this talk, we were talking about, or they were talking about one scene, or which is actually this, or what sometimes the audience or some of the audience related these scenes to to concentration camp images or prisons, and there was this
Abu Ghraib
Ghraib scene.
Mhm.
So maybe you can say something about that. I think that was something, at least in the talk, and maybe of the audience as well, couldn't really maybe get into that picture what still the other topic creates.
Yeah, for me it's interesting that, so for me this image wasn't that important. So of course I showed this prison and all this is torture elements, but all the other torture, because say that's real, all the other things are not real, but you see the hanged man, you see that they beat a dummy and so on, but this also happens in prisons. So the other images are for me as real as that one or as unreal as that one. So I was wondering that it wasn't the first time that the people react to this image that is related to these images from Abu Ghraib, because the guy said, so this is the real images, all other images are not real, but all the other images are also happening in prisons all over the world. So, but of course, this is a very iconic, you know, the guy with the bag over the head, and so it's a very iconic image, and of course it's very strong, and it's also touched me very much. So as that I thought,
Sure,
I would have it in my. That's for I would like it. So there's a lot of citates, of course, in my movie, and it's a lot of related to a lot of other things, mostly movies. And so for me, the image wasn't that important at all. But in the discussions, I heard it very often that people react to this image. So I think there are much worse images in the movie, but most people react to this image.
Yeah, maybe because it's still so close in our memory of images, that we can relate to that image more than to others. Yeah. Yeah. I thought you would say something. Yeah, no. But talking about actually, and then about mask or bodies, and so we could actually find there another relation to your film, Pascale. I mean, you have two people who actually transcend time and space somehow, and history. And I was wondering, first of all, why EDOUARD and Charles, why do they actually, I mean, I don't know whether this was, if I understood that right. I mean, for me, EDOUARD, he looked like a mod from the 60s. I don't know whether this was somehow intended to be, or if this was just what I've seen. And so, and what about Charles? Why he looked like, I don't know, some people I meet on the street sometimes nowadays. So why did you actually, or because I mean, EDOUARD seemed to be like from another planet in that particular clothes he was wearing. He was really from like a different time, and then everything seems to be how fit it into that, or why did you do that like that to bring them like that together?
Je cherchais une forme de comment on dit, de quelque chose qui soit pas complètement contemporain pour qualifier caractériser le personnage d'Édouard et de Charles. Alors, il se trouve que dans la garde-robe de Benjamin Esdrafo, il y avait ce costume, qui est effectivement un costume mode anglais des années 60. Après, il aurait eu un costume des années 20 ou un costume de Zazou des années 40. Bon, peut-être ça n'aurait pas été bien avec sa physionomie, mais c'était pas parce que c'était un costume mode. Mais par contre, s'il avait eu un costume qui se référait à une époque plus ancienne, je l'aurais pris tout pareil. Là, il s'avère qu'il aime les modes, donc c'est ça qu'il avait dans sa garde-robe, vu que de toute manière, il n'y avait pas d'argent pour acheter les costumes. Si tu peux traduire peut-être, Dominique.
Oui, so Pascale said that when trying to figure out the characters and characterizing them, she was looking for something that was not contemporary and that could be reflected in their costumes. And indeed, the suit worn by Charles, the one wearing the
Non, par Édouard.
by EDOUARD, is from the is an English mod suit from the 60s, which he just the actor just happened to have in his wardrobe. So for you, it was relevant that it was not a contemporary kind of suit, but it could have been from the 20s or from the 30s. It didn't matter. It just was a way to evoke another time, but not necessarily linked to that 60s kind of fashion.
Quant à Charles, il n'a pas un costume daté historiquement, c'est juste par rapport à son âge qu'il porte un blouson orange. Ça lui donne, pareil, quelque chose d'un petit peu... qui se fait pas. L'idée étant d'ancrer ces deux figures venues effectivement du passé dans le Paris contemporain et qu'on les remarque très directement.
Whereas Charles is wearing an orange blouse, which is not really dated in time, but it's just something that is kind of remarkable in a way that you wouldn't usually wear it like that. So it's kind of way to point out these characters and kind of make them stick out in this setting of today.
Parce que le fait qu'il y ait beaucoup de figurants qui savent même pas qu'ils sont figurants, mais que le film soit très peuplé par les Parisiens dans les rues, ça c'était très délibéré. Donc il fallait qu'on les repère tout de suite. Comme des fantômes un peu, mais quand même dans la ville. Parce que contrairement à Norbert, moi mon goût me porte plus vers quelque chose de plus romérien, en tout cas où il y a un rapport à l'enregistrement. En fait, l'idée, c'est vraiment de transposer une fantaisie, mais dans un contexte purement réaliste.
So, and since there was a lot of extras who didn't necessarily know they were extras, but since there was a lot of Parisians walking around in the shots, you had to be able to spot both characters easily. But also in a way it was important because Pascale is interested in a kind of Romerian sense to show people who might be kind of ghosts or apparitions, but in a realistic context, which kind of distinguishes her approach from Norbert, yours, and that she has this connection to the Paris of today.
Well, who had been spotted directly was actually Gulkan. I mean, he was he was definitely, I suppose as well, probably when filming, everybody somehow probably looked at him. I mean, you had all these people on the street, they were laughing at him as well, while he was looking actually, when he was turning around and looking at women. I mean, this was as well part of the discussion. So that it was. So I think some people have been irritated how the approach to looking after women was. It's maybe something nowadays doesn't really happen in films. Yeah, this is something I would go into it, and as well. Daniel said as well something, it is interesting to have a film which is about male concepts made by a woman. Is this something you can relate to? I mean, we were talking about the film a little bit afterwards, and you said this film is more about, it's about friendship of these two. And I thought a lot about your film afterwards, and therefore as well about the pictures and everything, but this is what I will ask later. But therefore I was asking myself, so is this something you could relate, Daniel said, about these male concepts? Was this a starting point for you when you were thinking about friendship? That this has been a male friendship, or is it, or female and male perspectives? Had this been a starting point for you?
Excuse-moi Dominique, mais là je crois qu'il est question de trucs male, female. Je m'y intéresse pas du tout. Je veux bien que tu me redises très bien le sens de la question, c'est-à-dire il s'agit d'une amitié masculine vue d'un point de vue féminin, c'est ça? J'ai pas compris.
Oui, c'était un des points qui avait été évoqué pendant le débat, que Dennis trouvait ça intéressant, que pour lui, c'était un film donc, qui adresse des concepts de masculinité, et qui trouvait ça intéressant, que c'était un film fait par une femme. Donc, Petra voulait aussi s'intéresser à la question si c'est une question que tu te posais ou...
Non. C'est complètement en dehors de... Je me pose pas tellement de questions, autant je suis très contente que... Enfin, je m'estime féministe moi-même et je suis très contente que les femmes puissent défendre leur point de vue. Autant mon film, je sais pas, il s'agissait de Baudelaire et de Manet. Donc bon, bah, c'était des hommes. Ensuite, j'ai inventé un personnage d'intercesseur. Après, c'est très lié à un casting. J'ai écrit le film pour les acteurs qui le jouent. Or, il s'avère que ce sont des garçons. Et j'ai peu à dire sur ce sujet. Après, c'est pas un film très viriliste, ni très... C'est des gens très blessés. Donc... voilà, après que ce soit des hommes ou des femmes, pour ce film-là, ça n'avait pas tellement d'importance. Enfin, il fallait que ce soit des hommes vu le sujet et la référence historique, mais je ne sais pas quoi dire. Petra, excuse-moi.
Thank you. Okay, so Pascale said that it's not a question she thought about too much because I mean, first it was related to the casting choice that she wrote the characters with the actors in mind. And as it was a story about Manet and Baudelaire, it kind of had to be boys, but then again, she didn't really ask herself the question about masculinity or in that regard, what they stand for in gender type of question. She sees herself as a feminist, and she's happy that women can ask questions about those topics. But as regarding to the film, for her, it was kind of a given, and was related to the characters. And yeah, did you add something more?
Et quant au fait que des gens puissent être irrités sur la propension de Gulcan à regarder des femmes, c'est pareil, c'était lié à ce récit d'amitié où au départ il a l'air de... Mais bon, c'est pas non plus très développé. Il a l'air de regarder les filles dans Paris et puis ensuite quand il est plus investi comme intercesseur dans l'histoire d'amitié entre Édouard et Charles, bah, il ne regarde plus les filles. Voilà, c'était aussi purement interne, cette histoire de regarder les filles qui a pu irriter, mais sûrement d'un point de vue idéologique, certains spectateurs, parce que juste, ils regardent des très belles filles dans Paris. Et puis voilà.
And as regarding to the character of Gulcan, which likes to watch women, beautiful women in Paris, it was more of an internal or story arc question where at first he's distracted by that, but as he grows more into his role often in between, in this friendship between Edouard and Charles, he kind of leaves that aside and concentrates more on that.
Yeah, I mean, it was actually the idea of Daniel about that film about male concepts. I was just thinking about when Charles actually said, when he was in Belgium, he said, "Oh, Belgian women smell badly." I mean, this is which was I thought this this will be a topic. But
c'est les paroles de Baudelaire, hein. C'est repris directement des textes qu'il a écrits dans Pauvre Belgique.
Yeah.
So that's a direct quote from Baudelaire, which he wrote in his text on Poor Belgium.
Et justement, pour mettre en scène ces textes-là, de fait, les femmes qui ont l'air de sentir mauvais, dont il s'éloigne comme si elles sentaient mauvais, de manière délibérée, les deux figurantes qui jouent ces femmes belges n'ont pas du tout l'air, enfin je ne sais même pas si elles étaient belges, elles ont l'air normales, elles n'ont pas l'air de sentir mauvais. C'était l'imaginaire de Baudelaire, de toute manière, d'attaquer, enfin de voir la femme comme quelque chose de mauvais. C'est pas du tout mon cas. Donc moi, c'était plus une occasion de peut-être mettre en scène quelque chose de plus déconcertant, voire marrant.
So as regards to the scene, putting into images this idea of Baudelaire that Belgian women smell bad. She doesn't even know if the extras playing those Belgian women were actually Belgian and from Belgium. And in that regard, it was more a question of putting it into images that were maybe funny as it relates to a vision from Baudelaire that is not so well informed, or that's qu'est-ce que t'as dit sur la vision de...
Il voyait la femme comme mauvaise, enfin comme source de mal.
So yeah, it relates to this idea of Baudelaire that women are bad or a source of evil.
Mais c'était aussi l'imaginaire qu'il a développé. Et j'ajouterais juste que c'est vrai que la question de l'empathie par rapport au personnage de Charles, donc évidemment très inspiré Baudelaire, c'est pas non plus une question que je me suis posée. Charles est objectivement antipathique dans le film. Il peut être touchant, mais ce n'est pas un personnage sympathique. Le rapport empathique du spectateur à ce qui est vu n'est pas quelque chose que je travaille beaucoup non plus. Bon là ça marche avec Gulcan, mais bon bah voilà, mais c'est pas quelque chose que je recherche systématiquement, en tout cas pour ce film-là.
So in regards to the character of Charles, who is inspired by Baudelaire, she didn't work much on the empathy you would have for the character, so he is fundamentally an not a sympathetic character. And
mais il peut être touchant, hein, ça n'enlève pas.
But he can still be moving in what he does.
Mais enfin, si on peut être touché par lui, ce sera pas par une empathie directe, quoi. C'est autre chose, je sais pas, c'est pas à moi de dire.
But if he moves you, it will not be through sympathy directly, but maybe something else that relates to the spectator and how they see it.
Yeah, sure. Regarding these two characters, it's easier to show a picture by Edouard, and you know, okay, this is referring to Edouard. So then maybe a quote from a poem or a text from Baudelaire, which maybe appears in your film. So are there when you were writing the script, are there more some original texts which actually had been part of the film, which Charles, which actually, or what you could be say, these are historic thoughts or of Charles Baudelaire?
Oui, c'est un film qui s'est écrit sur 20 ans et qui est très sédimenté. C'est-à-dire, il y a beaucoup de références plus ou moins explicites. Peut-être tu peux traduire au fur et à mesure, Dominique.
Wait, so it's a film that was written over 20 years. Did I get that right? So there's a lot of references to the works of
C'est
Baudelaire.
très sédimenté, ça s'est écrit par couches. Il y a même des citations d'Hoffmann.
So it's very sedimentary. It was written by layers overlapping each other, and there's even quotes from Hoffmann.
Oui, E.T.A. Hoffmann. Mais malgré tout, le défi, le pari que j'ai fait, c'était que pour des gens qui connaissent rien à l'époque à laquelle on se réfère, aux écrits de Baudelaire, à d'autres écrits il y a Hoffmann un peu avant, mais le pari, c'était que ce soit une histoire d'amitié. En fait, c'est un peu miné, le terrain est miné. Pour quelqu'un qui ne comprend pas, il faut qu'il voit une histoire d'amitié. Pour quelqu'un qui connaît très très bien, il va tout de suite voir de quoi il s'agit, parce qu'il y a beaucoup de citations. Puis pour quelqu'un qui connaît un peu, je crois que c'est la position de spectateur la moins confortable, parce qu'il se dit, il y a anguille sous roche, et il n'arrive pas trop à savoir si c'est du lard ou du cochon.
Okay, so what you said was that it was kind of a challenge, I mean, also to yourself, but also kind of a bet to tell the story that has to work either for people who don't know any of the references and for whom it has to work as a story on friendship. Whereas for people who know very well the subject matter, they will instantly get the references and see them. And then there's the people who are kind of in between, which is probably the hardest spectator position to be in as regards to your film, who might know some of the references but can't exactly place them, and they might suspect that there's something going on, but they couldn't really pinpoint what exactly it is you're referring to.
Moi, ça me gêne pas tellement au cinéma de pas trop comprendre ou d'être un peu perdu. Bon, bah là, c'est vrai qu'il n'y a que le personnage de Gulkan qui est vraiment très accessible et qui lui-même est censé ne rien connaître de tous ces histoires qu'aurait pu faire l'objet d'un documentaire d'histoire de l'art.
So Pascale doesn't mind when she's in the cinema and she's a bit lost because she doesn't necessarily know references or what's going on. But it's true that in this case, there's really just the character of Gulkan that's kind of outside of this world of references and what's going on.
Yeah, actually, yeah, this is, I mean, the references, to me, Olympia and a little bit of the story of Olympia, I have vague memories of being that image was some sort very important to Manet, and it was kind of a scandal as well when it actually was finished. And of course, all these caricatures we were talking about in the talk as well about caricatures. I mean, caricatures as critiques as well, which had been in this historic times, as in nowadays, people use this as a subtle critique on a certain matter. So this is something I could relate to, and therefore I was actually asking myself a lot more. So what I didn't know about this friendship, and so I wasn't really into that friendship, but more in about so what is about this art business? How can we, this art business, on one side, of course the painter and the writer, and how can we relate this art business to nowadays? How complicated it is, and how to get maybe how do you say, Stipendien or
funding or
fundings, yeah, sorry, fundings when you are, if you want to go to a different country or you're invited by an institution. So this is actually this lady which actually wanted to get funding for Charles for Belgium. I was wondering as well, what was her role actually, because she was a very central person, how she appeared, but then she disappeared on this in the same time again. So I was wondering about, what is she, someone who has like a historic pendant, or is she just she don't know? Yeah, this is what I was wondering, because she felt so important to me somehow.
Non, tout n'a pas d'équivalent historique. J'étais partie du fait que, bon là, il s'agit d'un peintre qui demande à son ami d'écrire sur sa peinture parce qu'il a besoin d'être assuré, et puis d'un poète, enfin poète critique, donc l'ami en question, qui n'a pas d'argent et qui demande à cette dame de lui trouver de l'argent pour partir ailleurs. Donc, à partir de là, bah, y a eu cette femme qui est arrivée, qui représente l'institution, sachant que c'est pas des équivalents, mais Manet avait de son côté beaucoup souffert de n'être pas exposé au salon, allant jusqu'à même à exposer ses tableaux finançant une exposition personnelle en face du salon où il n'avait pas été reçu. Et puis Baudelaire, il avait toujours besoin d'argent parce qu'il était sous curatelle, donc ayant lu sa correspondance, j'aimais cette idée qu'il mendie de l'argent. Dans la correspondance, c'est à sa mère, tout le temps, un petit peu à ses éditeurs, et là, bon, bah, pour un peu contemporanéiser le propos, j'ai essayé de trouver une trame très simple, un peintre en butte à une critique qui le fait souffrir, donc les caricatures, et un critique poète qui a besoin d'argent. Et donc est venue cette femme. Je veux dire que le film n'est pas une satire. C'est pas une satire d'une représentante. Oui, tu veux peut-être traduire?
Sinon, je vais perdre le film.
Ça va, excuse-moi.
Okay, so the point was that everything in the film does not have a historical equivalent. So the character of the woman that is there to get the grants has not a necessarily a historical inspiration, but she was there to represent the institution. And as far as the characters go, I mean, you have the painter, which is very unsure of himself and therefore asks his friend to write about his paintings. And then on the other side, you have the poet and the critic, who I'm losing the train. But the reference, I mean, the historical characters of, I mean, this does relate to the historical characters of Edouard Manet, who was very sickened by the fact that he wasn't, his paintings weren't shown at the Salon, and therefore funded from his own money an exposition across the street, whereas Baudelaire himself was always kind of broke, or at least that's what you could get from reading some of his letters. And therefore that's something you also incorporated into the character, and therefore came the women character who was there to help him out of this, or who he asked to help him out of the situation.
Oui, je vais être très brève, excuse-moi Norbert. Donc vraiment l'idée c'était que ce soit plausible de nos jours, avec des artistes, un peintre, un critique qui ait des problèmes très quotidiens.
So the idea was that it was plausible today, and showing characters that have very daily problems that are related to problems artists, painters, writers would have today.
Et c'est pas une satire dans le sens où cette Jeanne Brio, la femme qui représente l'institution qui donne les sous.
And it's not a satire in regards to that Jeanne Brio, which is the characters who stands for the institution which gives the grants.
Elle aimerait vraiment que Charles obtienne cette bourse. Donc c'est fait pas la satire des institutions, c'est juste une comédie dramatique ou une fantaisie où il y a des personnages qui appartiennent au monde contemporain de gens dans l'art, y compris avec la scène dans une galerie parisienne.
So this character, a women character who really wishes and hopes for Charles to get his grant, and in that sense it's not a satire, as it's just a reflection of today's kind of art milieu, where including the scene in a gallery with people looking at the art.
Yeah. So my last question regarding your film would be again, what means again, but about Gulkan. I mean, I think everybody was just, not everybody, maybe not, but he was irritating. So, and still is. So what was, for me, for me, it is, why did he had to be like that? Because I thought, just to refer as well to some comments, so why did he had to be some sort of a savage person who is not able to speak? I think some as well have been disturbed, and I thought maybe I'm wrong. And it felt like when he was starting actually getting into a relationship between them, and he was getting more and more serious as well. I mean, at the beginning he was just like he had some sort of innocence, and he didn't actually care about what was going to happen. He was just observing and repeating the things, and then he was actually getting aware that there are some sort of problems, and so he was getting more and more serious about the things that surrounded him. And it felt like, well, is he now getting to some sort from a savage person to a human being or whatever? So this was something strange I felt about it. I mean, I felt it interesting that someone who is not able to communicate in an understandable language, to bring two people who are not able to talk to each other into contact. I think this was a very interesting fact. So what could you tell us a little bit more about Gulkan, please?
Oui, je le considère pas comme un sauvage, mais comme un étranger qui ne sait pas parler la langue du pays dans lequel il est.
So she doesn't see Gulkan as a savage, but just as a stranger who doesn't speak the language of the country he's in.
Et Petra, je crois que j'ai cru comprendre que tu avais tout à fait perçu son évolution, qui va de quelque chose d'extrêmement innocent à quelque chose de plus réfléchi, parce qu'effectivement, c'est lui qui restaure l'amitié entre Édouard et Charles. J'ai donc missionné un étranger qui ne parle pas français pour réconcilier deux figures très connues de l'art français. C'était le défi de cette fantaisie historique.
So Petra, what she understood you said was very right, is that she took this, I mean, she had this character which has an evolution during the film from being very innocent to being more thoughtful and thought out, and being the one person that brings together these two characters from, I mean, she took a person that did not speak the French language, a stranger, to bring together these two persons from the French history, and to reconcile them in a way in their friendship, and that was a kind of a dramatic challenge she had.
Okay, yeah.
May I ask something? Sorry.
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
No, I was wondering, this funny language this Gulkan guy speaks, was this written or was this all improvisation?
C'était tout écrit. J'avais fait lire des textes très littéraires à quelqu'un qui vit en France mais qui ne parle pas français. Et j'ai transcrit sa prononciation. Et ensuite, Serge Boson a appris ce langage. Et ce qui est très difficile à faire pour un acteur, de désapprendre à parler français. Mais tout était écrit. Parce que malgré tout, il y a une évolution. Comme dans le film, il apprend une lettre juste par la mémoire de la prononciation. Au fur et à mesure, il parle mieux. Donc tout ça a été écrit pour la progression.
So it was all written down. Her process was that she asked someone who lived in France but did not speak French to read these very literary texts, and then she kind of recorded the pronunciation, and then it was work of the actor to learn this text, which turned out to be very difficult because it is very difficult to unlearn a language you know how to speak, and which was and something that was special about it is also that there's an evolution in the film as the character ends up learning a letter by heart, by remembering the pronunciation and the sounds, and therefore he starts to talk better and better during the film.
Et là, c'est vrai que le sous-titrage n'est pas une bonne chose pour Gulkan, parce que comme on lit avant d'écouter, là, vous pouviez comprendre ce qu'il disait en lisant. Mais ça, c'est pas bien. Le film est mieux en français sans sous-titres pour Gulkan.
So the subtitles weren't exactly advantages for the character of Gulkan, because you could read what he was trying to say before he was saying it, and therefore you could also guess what he was saying, and it didn't work as well. So the film probably works better in French.
Même si le traducteur a fait tout ce qu'il a pu et que je suis très très contente des sous-titres, mais c'est juste parce que naturellement on lit toujours avant d'écouter, c'est comme ça.
Even if the translator made a tremendous job and did everything he could, and she's very happy with his work, it's just a reflex to always read before you listen, and therefore it's a disadvantage in this case.
Yeah, so I think from now on I will always, when I see Serge, I think I will see Gulkan as well, I must say. So yeah. Okay. And then, yeah, please, have you any more comments and about your films, or about Critics Week, or you about Norbert's film Pascale, or Norbert about your film Pascale?
No, just a big compliment to the actor and of course to Pascale for this. I love this. I don't speak French, but I love this language very much, and I thought that it must be very hard for an actor to learn that. But he did a really great job on that. I was really impressed.
Merci Norbert.
Yeah, then thank you very much. So I think I didn't mention the title actually at the beginning. So we have shown by Pascale Bodet, EDOUARD and CHARLES, and by Norbert we have shown 2551.01 by Norbert Pfaffenbichler, and you can watch the critics debate as well on our YouTube channel. And yeah, so, and of course you have the possibility someday to watch these films, and then you probably can relate more to our debate as well. So thank you very much. Thank you very much for showing, or let us showing your films at Critics Week, and yeah, hopefully see you again as a guest, or as even a panel guest maybe, when we were showing different films. So yeah, that would be lovely. And I hope you had a good time in Berlin, especially in these awkward times. We had been very happy to receive you.
Thanks a lot again for the invitation.
Yes, danke schön.
Je vous en prie.
Merci à vous trois, puis à toute la Wix Kritik.
Merci.
Vielen Dank an auch das ganze Woche der Kritik-Team.
I will do. Yeah. So see you soon, hopefully somewhere, and take care.
Thanks a lot. Bye.
Bye bye.
Yeah.